Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, and welcome to the second of 4 episodes that are targeted at understanding the unintentional threat triggers as related to the DISC model of human behavior. In the last episode, I focused on people with dominant style traits, looking at the two sides of that interaction spectrum, the unintentional threat triggers that people with dominant traits might exhibit towards other people, and the things that other people might do that trigger threat for people with the dominant style traits. Today, I'm going to continue the series and talk about the person with inspiring traits. And again, I'm going to look at both sides of the communication dynamic. What is it that people with inspiring traits might do that trigger threat for others? And what is it that other people might do that triggers threat for people with inspiring traits? And as I said before, if you'd like more insight on the DISC model, you can get more specific information at DISCpersonalitytesting.com, where you can get a range of teaching and training resources. You can take a DISC personality style assessment and get some deeper insights into the ideas that I'm sharing here today. Today is intended to give you an overview of some ideas that you can use to become a more effective leader, specifically in the leadership role for either experienced or aspiring leaders. How to talk like a leader. And part of talking like a leader is learning how to adjust your communication style to be more effective with others. Avoiding unintentional threat triggers is one of the key skills for you to develop. Now let's move on and talk about the person with inspiring traits. I'm talking directly to the person with inspiring traits now. And let's talk about some of the things that you might do completely unintentionally, probably innocently, that for other people could be threatening. And a quick reminder. I'm not suggesting the things you do are physically threatening to people or make people actually afraid of you. I'm talking about the things that you can do in an effort, frankly, to get your own needs met or to make a connection with another person that can, for them, trigger a social threat signal. And because it triggers for them a social threat signal, it creates fight or flight response, even at a low level in their brain. It makes it very difficult for them to engage with you. It might cause them to be annoyed or frustrated by you. And again, not because you're trying to be annoying or frustrating, just because there's a disconnect in your styles, and the thing that comes perfectly naturally to you, would feel very comfortable to you, is annoying or frustrating for them. And that probably comes through the energy or enthusiasm that you bring to the conversation, possibly how personal you get. So the place you're most likely to have trouble is with your cross-style combination. That is, interacting with people who have the primary cautious trait. And the thing to keep in mind is people who have cautious trait don't tend to want to get very personal very quickly, and they may not be super expressive. And so your effort to try to build a connection with them and try to be friendly with them and try to be super excited and enthusiastic, hoping that they will reciprocate, might actually drive them into a corner because that energy feels too much too fast for them, or too personal too quickly, or the energy is just over the top from their perspective. Learn to pay attention to how people respond to your energy. If they back away, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't like you. It might mean that it's just too much for them. And so you want to learn how to tone it down a little bit. When you're interacting with a person who has a lot of dominant traits, something you might do could be to tell a story that goes too long for them. It's probably a great story. It's probably a story that you love, and you're reveling in all the details of the story and all the experiences, and it could be driving them crazy. For a person with dominant traits, that long story can feel like they're not getting to the point, and for them, that can be a threat trigger. And when you're interacting with a person who has supportive traits, it's not super likely that you'll do something that triggers a threat for them, probably because you're both very people-oriented. Although, because they're reserved and you're outgoing, too much energy could be too much for them. It could cause them to shut down or feel like you're getting too close or closing in on their space. So beware of your energy level with people with supportive traits also. Just a few tips, things to think about, things to pay attention to. If you see people back away or disengage from your conversation, it's possible that your effort to connect with them has become too much for them or gone too long with them and causes them to back away. Learn to tone it down and shorten it up. You'll probably be just fine. Now, what is it that people interacting with people who have inspiring traits? So this is to people who do not have inspiring traits. What is it you could do that could unintentionally trigger a threat in the mind of a person with inspiring traits? Well, I'm going to go directly to the people with cautious traits at this point because that's the place where it's most likely to happen, or place that is the greatest difficulty to overcome. People with cautious traits can get very focused on details and very focused on data and very focused on enforcing rules. All of these things can come across as uncaring and cold and rigid to a person with inspiring traits. And so by focusing too much on details without making allowance for interaction and social connection, people with cautious traits could unintentionally, in their effort to get data, cause the inspiring person to shut down and withdraw. So beware of that. Person with dominant traits, what you might do that is unintentionally threatening to a person with inspiring traits is that you might push for the bottom line a little too fast. You might withhold approval. You might have the perception that if you recognize and approve them, it's going to give them a big head in some way, which is probably not true. Recognizing and acknowledging a person with inspiring traits actually feeds them in a way that draws them to you and encourages them to engage and give you information and reach solutions and solve problems for you rather than disengage and avoid you. Now, person with supportive traits, it's not super likely that you'll do something that causes a threat trigger for a person with inspiring traits, although I would give you the warning that the tendency to listen rather than engage and talk, if that describes you, could be threatening to a person with inspiring traits because they're looking for connection. They're looking for you to engage. So if you're slow to engage and a bit reticent in your interaction or not terribly expressive, it might come across as cold to them or like you don't like them. Again, probably not intentional. It could happen if you are listening more than you're engaging and not showing them verbally that you're engaged in the conversation. So it's two sides of the interaction involving people with inspiring traits. Remember that if you want to talk like a leader, whatever your trait style blend is, and remember, as I've said before, that we are style blends, not just single styles. So there's probably a little bit of something in all four of these episodes for everyone. What I do is encourage you, if you're in your journey to learn how to talk like a leader, is to learn how to adapt both your perceptions and your interactions so that you learn what you do that causes threat for other people and modify or mitigate that behavior or interaction pattern, and also adjust your perceptions of other people. Learn to understand that the way another person interacts with you is really just an expression of how they see and process the world. It's probably not intended to frustrate you. Reminding you of an episode where I talked about the presumption of benign intent. Here's a good chance to practice that. Whatever the other person does, whatever their style is, try to view it through their lens. And if you'll do that, you will see it as less of a personal affront, less of a threat trigger personally. You'll understand how they perceive you so that you can avoid behaving in a way that triggers them in a negative way. If you'll do this, no matter what your style, learn to adjust both your behaviors and your perceptions to match the other person's preferred approach. You will talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.